Salt Lake Mystery. What's happening in the skies above this ranch? An object hovers in the air, moving at angles and trajectories that defy logic or explanation. Salt Lake City, Utah. The thump of propeller precedes the arrival of a black helicopter at SKINWALKER Ranch. The ranch's new owner, Brandon Fugel, and his brother are on board. His brother Cameron, the pilot, lands the helicopter, disturbing the otherwise quiet scenery with a cloud of dust. Fugel steps out onto the helipad, the one he had built specifically for his regular visits over the last 6 months. He has no reason to suspect this visit will be any different. They walk the perimeter under a punishing sun, now accustomed to the gruesome sight of animal entrails ceremoniously draped over the fence line. Then there is above the mesa, where there had been only cloudless sky an instant before, wide and flat like a saucer and gleaming silver, an object hovers in the air, moving at angles and trajectories that defy logic or explanation. The group of men freeze, staring and transfixed. The disc moves in the blink of an eye, like a bullet, unhindered by physics, and vanishes. This is according to WND. The Uinta Basin in northeastern Utah is no stranger to the strange. It's home to hundreds of reported sightings of UFO or UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, which is now the official government-approved terminology, and the notorious SKINWALKER Ranch, the alleged center of the unexplained activity in the basin. The ranch has had 3 owners since the early 90s, and its last 2 owners have dedicated time, money, and untold resources to unearthing its secrets. The owners, therefore, before them were cattle ranchers trying to get by while immersed in the high strangeness of what goes on there. The current owner is Brandon Fugel, a Utah-based commercial real estate executive, chairman of Colliers International, bought the property in 2016. He said, "I was immediately taken aback by how striking the property was." He says his first visit to the ranch, SKINWALKER Ranch, is 512 acres of manifold landscape, from a red rock mesa plateau that runs the expanse of the property to natural waterways and cave systems dotted with old pioneer homesteads. "It's surprisingly beautiful," he said. Fugel professes even though he acquired the property with the intention to research the unexplained activity, he's more of a Scully than a Mulder. He was a skeptic of its paranormal significance, which he retained on the first visit. He said, "I found nothing unusual about the property, other than that for the first tour he noticed something unusual about the fence line perimeter. These body parts were hanging from the fence, animal bladders that were blessed and hung for the purpose of keeping the demonic spirit entities on the property." Fugel describes the act to people living on the nearby reservation. But despite the efforts of keeping any entities from leaving the property, visitors to the ranch have reported that unknown entities, quote, followed them home after they left the ranch, end quote. The disturbing tableau aside, Fugel's skepticism remained until he had unexplained experiences of his own. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box. Before the ranch passed into Fugel's hands, he read about the strange happenings on the property in a book called Hunt for the Skinwalker, written by Dr. Colm A. Kelleher, biochemist and journalist George Knapp. It details the efforts by the National Institute for Discovery Science, NIDS, to study and document the strange activity on the ranch, as well as the accounts of Tom and Ellen Gorman, pseudonyms used for Hunt for the Skinwalker, the aforementioned cattle ranchers who used to own the ranch. The founders of NIDS, Robert Bigelow, a Las Vegas millionaire, set up the organization specifically to study UFOs and related phenomena. He bought the ranch from the Gormans in 1996 to study it further but hired them on to maintain the ranch and own the property until he sold it to Fugel in 2016. The experiences of the Gormans are what brought Bigelow and NIDS to the ranch in the first place. When the cattle ranchers first moved in, they were surprised to discover there were deadbolts on the insides and outsides of the doors of the home. Even though windows were bolted, they were also perplexed by a clause in the real estate contract that stipulated there was to be no digging on the ranch without first notifying the previous owners. Why is that? After settling into their new home, the Gorman's strange experiences included several cattle mutilations, the appearance of a massive wolf that mangled a calf but whose tracks disappeared suddenly. They witnessed large black objects hovering above the ranch, orange shapes in the sky that appeared to transport passing objects to some other world, and blue orbs that did away with 3 dogs. When the NIDS team arrived to document the Gorman's account, they began to have experiences of their own. They tell of seeing moving lights with no known source and mysterious destruction of their surveillance cameras, but the gulf of the unexplained phenomenon has to do with the hunt for the skinwalker continued to occur around the Gormans. But what about before the Gormans got this ranch? They bought it from a man named Garth Myers in 1994, who had inherited from his brother and sister-in-law, Kenneth and Edith Myers, who in turn bought the ranch in the 1930s by some accounts. In interviews, Garth Myers denied that there was any sort of UFO activity on the property while he owned it. He also disputes parts of the Gorman story, like the deadbolts and digging claws. While the Myers family might not have experienced any strange phenomena, their neighbors did, though. Frank Salisbury, who headed the plant science department of Utah State University before he died in 2015, also wrote a book on UFO sightings in Utah, The Utah UFO Display. For the 2010 edition of the book, he includes interviews with people whose land neighbored Skinwalker Ranch. One neighbor, John Garcia, saw an orange object as large as a house floating above his fence, before it shot up into the sky and zoomed away. Another, Charles Wynn, was out one night when he saw a bright light that he compared to an arc welder, white and bright but not hot. The light came for him, and fearing for his life, he dropped down into a ditch full of water and covered his head with his arms. Others in the area saw orbs in the sky, blue on the outside, orange in the center, giving off slow sparks. Salisbury, along with his collaborator Joseph Jr. Hicks, fastidious record-keeping schoolteacher in Roosevelt, interviewed witnesses and collected first-hand accounts of the UFO sightings dating back to the 1950s. The writer of Hunt for the Skinwalker suggests strange events started long before then, back when the Uinta Basin was still part of the Ute tribe's ancestral hunting grounds, before the U.S. government regulated them to the reservation, what is now the Ute Indian tribe of the Uinta and Ouray Reservation, and opened up the area to white ranchers. The name Skinwalker, quote unquote, itself is appropriated from the beliefs of some Southwest Native American tribes, in which a skinwalker is often a malevolent magic user capable of turning into animals. Hicks has collected accounts of people who claim to have seen skinwalkers, often in the form of a large wolf, sometimes capable of walking upright, and these beliefs are not just spooky ghost stories or campfire tales for North Americans whose culture includes those still living traditions they often are unwilling to share or explain. One thing is certain about Skinwalker Ranch and the great Uinta Basin: the mystery remains resistant to years of investigation, study, and scrutiny. The same could be said for broader mystery of UAP in general. Fugel believes the current investigation going on at Skinwalker Ranch could provide the key needed to unlock both mysteries. When he acquired the ranch, he installed his own team to begin investigating, and he says, as part of our investigation, I brought forward a team of multidisciplinary professionals physicists, engineers, scientists from an array of disciplines in service to better understand what is at work. Fugel says his team has conducted drone aerial surveys, oil surveys, seismic record reviews with the purpose of trying to determine whether there was a natural prosaic explanation for what had been recorded there. And as far as he's recorded, he says, we've seen everything from daylight to nighttime UAP events to extreme electromagnetic anomalies, equipment malfunction, even damage to acute medical episodes experienced by a number of participants. None of this is a secret, he says. The current Skinwalker Ranch investigation is the subject of a History Channel documentary series called The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. Fugel says he was hesitant to sign off on the show, and the producers, the same guy behind Ancient Aliens, spent a year trying to convince him, and he agreed. He says, as long as nothing was fabricated or contrived, he says, I could use my own team whom I trusted. Fugel originally asked for anonymity as well, but felt in order to show, for the show to be genuine and authentic, he says, I needed to come forward as this was my spiritual journey with my group of closely held confidants. I was persuaded to go public as part of the series, and now the show has aired for 2 seasons. They're started filming for season 3 this summer. Part of his desire to remain anonymous to protect his reputation in his other business ventures, who wants to be known as a UFO guy? So he responds, he says he's been largely one to support and genuine interest. After all, he says almost everyone has a story about experiencing something they can't quite explain. And he says it begs the question, why are we not taking the scientific study of UAP more seriously? Well, some people are, the U.S. government for one. However, those efforts to investigate UAP and other unexplained phenomena have not been quite as public until recently. So the truth is out there. Okay, they're going to make this documentary. Are we alone? What do you think? I'll leave links below for you for this. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support.